All right, so I think we are live. Hello, everyone who are watching us from all over the world. This is Noman with another LinkedIn live session, and today we are live on three platforms at the same time. We are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And today I have an experienced HR professional with me. She doesn't need kind of a formal introduction. So, Nariman, welcome on board, and thank you very much for spending time for this LinkedIn live session. And maybe we can start with a brief introduction about yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much, Nariman, for having me. I'm really looking forward to the session. My name is Nariman. I am currently working with the British Council as the head of talent and development for the South Asia region, which means about 7 countries that I'm looking after in South Asia. I've been working in HR for almost 16 years now. And to
Yeah.
be, if I'm being very, very honest, my entry into HR was by chance.
Okay.
I went for an interview for a procurement position, which I didn't really know what it was until I got there. And then I'm like, okay, this is not for me. And the lady who was representing HR asked me if I'd be interested in HR. And I said, okay, let's give it a shot. I gave it a shot and I've never looked back because I've genuinely enjoyed everything that I've done in HR. I've worked in the telecom industry. I've worked with FMCGs, with Pepsi, with Coke, with BAT. And now I'm in the development sector. So it has been a very interesting journey for me. I've really enjoyed it because I've worked in various fields. I've worked in various roles of HR. I mean, from, talent acquisition to comp and ben to operations to learning to talent. I've pretty much done the whole, gambit of HR roles. And I genuinely am very grateful for the career that I've had because I've had an opportunity to work with people from various parts of the world, from various parts of the country. And in Pakistan, I've been lucky enough to work in Islamabad, Lahore, and Karachi and experience all the different cultures in those 3 locations as well. So thank you so much for having me. And I hope I can add some value to the discussion today.
I think it's a wonderful, wonderful introduction, and it's quite closely related to our discussion as well. As you mentioned that you have worked in multiple different industries, and today we'll be talking about career development. So, and I feel like that your career path, the way you started, then you move across different industries. So it is kind of an example in itself that how people can grow from one industry to the other one, how can they diversify the portfolio, and how you can really personally and professionally develop yourself to move up in the career ladder. So, how do you define career development? Because a lot of people they have confusion about this topic. Some people believe that more trainings, then I'll be able to
Yeah.
diversify my portfolio, or I have to be a manager down the line in 5 to 10 years. Then it would mean that I have really progressed my
Yeah.
career. What is your definition for career development?
Yes. So for me, I think career development and career and personal growth are very closely linked. You can, be getting changes in titles left, right, and center, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you've gotten the growth that you need. So it has to be a balance between your personal development, and that is on you. You own that. You don't need to wait for an organization to send you for a training or a manager to give you a project to do. So that's your self part, right? So there's that personal growth that you have to focus on. And the second, yes, you look at titles, you look at industries, and you look at how you expand that way. For me, in every role that I've done, I've made sure that I have learned as much as I could. And that's not because my manager gave me an assignment to do, but it's my personal this thing of asking all the questions that I want to ask, asking for projects, volunteering,
Right.
knowing that it might take, a few extra hours. I might be working longer than my 9 to 6 or 9 to 5. But what I'm going to gain in those few extra hours will help me in the long run. So you have to take ownership of your career growth and career development first and foremost for yourself. I know for a lot of us who are in the field of learning, we talk about the 70-20-10 model, right? So
Okay.
70% of your learning is on the job. It's not through your classroom trainings. Yeah, course page. Yeah, that's not what we're looking for. So 70% of whatever you're going to learn has to be on the job, as in through experience. And this is where you take on those stretch assignments. This is where you take on maybe doing a maternity cover for somebody else. This is where you take that role, which is in a far-flung, quiet part of the country where people might not want to go, but what you're going to learn is going to be very different. 20% is what you learn from others. These are your managers, your mentors, your coaches, even reverse mentoring is there. So I sit with someone who's really, my Excel skills are really poor. I sit with someone who knows Excel and they're going to tell me what I need to do and how to do it. So 20% from there, and only 10% of your learning is through formal classroom sessions or online certifications and things like that. So I think we are a little bit confused, and depending on these sort of like, oh, I got this certification is completed, or I attended this training course, to say I've now developed, because unless you take what you have done in that training course or what you have learned and apply it on the job, you're going to forget it. It's not going to stick. So don't worry about training courses, worry about what you're doing on the job first. The second thing for me, which is really important, is I've seen a lot of people run after either money or titles when it comes to career growth. I'll give my own personal example. My first job was at now Jazz. It was MobiLink back then. And when I left MobiLink after a very considerable amount of time, I spent almost 5 years there. And then I felt it was time for me to move on because I had rotated amongst the various HR departments, the HR teams. So I had done most of it. Sure, maybe not at a senior manager level, but I felt I had learned quite a bit. And the position that I moved to title was executive, right? And the position I was leaving was assistant manager. So for a lot of people, that felt like a step down on my resume, that, okay, you went from an assistant manager to like a sourcing executive. Why would you do that? And yes, the title might seem like a step backwards, but I also knew that as a organization, BAT was seen as a learning institute, right? You're going to learn a lot when you're there. So for me, it was more about that and the experience that I would gain. It was a different type of role. The combination was different from anything that I'd done at MobiLink. So I took the chance and I made that switch. But a lot of people wouldn't, because they're very conscious about titles and role names and these kind of things, which I think sometimes actually holds us back. The other thing I've seen a lot of people do is run after a big paycheck, which I understand if financials are a concern and if that's your primary reason for working, sure, I understand that. But what I've seen a lot of people do is that they go for maybe smaller organizations or roles which they might not be ready for just yet because they want the bigger paycheck. And sometimes it works really well. And sometimes I've seen people actually not be able to cope because they haven't done the learning before they get there. So I think horizontal moves are something that we should be looking at, which we don't look at enough. We only look at moving up. Whereas, I have worked as maybe a specialist or a manager level in a T&D role, but I'm equally happy to do a manager level in a talent acquisition role, or maybe even in commercial, right? Because I'm getting that understanding of that business. So I think it really depends on, we need to change that perspective of a career ladder to more of a career web or a career lattice, that it works across and then up, yes, but don't get bogged down in that I must move up and my title must go from, assistant manager to senior manager. There are other ways around it as well.
I think you raise a very interesting point that and now the career development framework is changing with the passage of time. The way we are talking about the workplace of the future, and we are talking about that, companies won't work in formal departmentalization form and in the near future. Probably people would be working more cross-functionally.
Yes.
They will be collaborating together in terms of projects. So it would be like that if I am working on one project for 1 year, so might be my next 2 years would be another project. So
that's so true.
So it will lead me towards my second question, that how important is cross-functional, cross-departmental movement? What can we learn? And how can we really make it happen? Is it the responsibility of the organization? Is it the responsibility of the individual? Or career development is the sole responsibility of the leader?
I think that's a very interesting way of looking at it. And I couldn't agree with you more in terms of like the role or like the importance of collaboration and where we're going in the future with all of that. It's definitely the way we will work. I mean, we can look at it even now. When we're working on any project, there's always, somebody from 2 or 3 different departments who come together to do it. So when it comes to cross-functional or cross-departmental roles or taking up those opportunities, I think it's a combination of the responsibility of the organization and the individual. Because I've seen where organizations put that on offer and individuals are a little bit scared that, oh, but that's not really in line with my career path or my career direction. What we don't realize is the opportunity that we're missing out on. For example, for me, being an HR individual, when I'm working with, let's say, an FMCG, where sales marketing is like a very big part of what we do, or even supply chain. Doing a role in any of those functions will make me a much better HR business partner because I will actually understand what I am partnering for. So when I'm sitting in a, marketing leadership team meeting, I know exactly what they're talking about because I've been through it. You are seeing more and more where you have people who don't stick to one career path. So you'll have people who are in IT who've done marketing, or people in IT who've done HR, or HR people who've had a sales background, or, vice versa. Because we understand that to be a good leader, you need an understanding of everything. It's not enough to just have that functional expertise anymore. You do rely obviously on teams and getting information from there, but you need to understand how all the different pieces of the business come together. And again, is that the responsibility of me or the organization? Organizations definitely look at obviously their talent pipelines. They look at where the gaps are. They look at who are potential successors. But I also need to put my hand up and say, yeah, I'm willing to do this. And I'm not scared of it because they're only going to ask me once, maybe twice. After that, they'll move on to someone else. So I think it's a combination, but I do feel organizations definitely need to look into other areas for talent as well, because they might be missing out on an opportunity when they're focusing on just that immediate function or that immediate department line.
I think you're spot on. I mean, we can take the example of some other activity, for example, in a football team or in a cricket team, if you're a player. And in the beginning, everybody will get a due importance. But after all, after some time, the person who will run the extra mile, who will take initiative, who will, really help himself to grow further, that's the person who will be focused on. I mean, I can't disagree with you more. Then we got some questions as well, and some people they are commenting. So I won't be able to take all the comments. So everybody's saying hi, hello, thank you very much for joining. And please mention your location as well, so that we know that you are watching us from this country and that one. So then we got another question from Nikesh Kumar. I think Nikesh is watching us from India, hopefully, and he's saying that he's electrical engineer and having a dream to work as product management. But currently, I'm working as OMS engineer due to lack of opportunity. But I have such skills, so please guide me. What should I do? I mean, the basic question is about that he got some skills, but unfortunately, he's not getting the opportunity where he could, live these skills or where he could unleash his potential.
Yeah, and showcase them. Nikesh, I'll be very honest. I think there are a lot of people, unfortunately, in a similar position. And I think we've all gone through it at one point or the other. But I'm glad, what I'm really happy to see is that you didn't let that, bog you down, and you did take what opportunity you could get as an OMS engineer. And that's great. While your dream is to work in product management, you stick to that. But don't underestimate the value that the OMS engineering job is giving to you as well. You are developing a whole bunch of skills here. You're learning here. The only thing I can say is keep your eyes open, look for opportunities, speak to people within the organization, build that network as well. Having a career support network within the organization is very important. Making sure that you're visible, working on your visibility in the organization is equally important, so that people in product management know who you are, know what skills you have, volunteer maybe for a project to help them with in your, when you have some extra time, or maybe speak to your manager, can I volunteer to spend some time in this team, work with them on a project, help them get something through. And that might help in, again, improving your visibility and them seeing the skills that you have so that you can actually take it forward. So those are some things that I could think of at the top of my head. But sometimes it takes time and you have to be okay with it. And it's okay if it takes that time. Just remember that even in the role that you're doing now, you are learning and you are developing.
Exactly. I mean, your focus should be a little bit, you should look at the broader horizon. At what you are getting right now, definitely going to help down the line after 5 years once you will grab your dream role. And I think it's a challenge for everyone, every individual working in many different companies, sometimes we get stuck due to many known barriers or unknown barriers. So there's a time when the individual should be patient enough to wait and to tap for the right opportunity. Then
Yeah.
we got a comment from our friend Suhaib, who is also very much
Very
active on
active on
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Suhaib believes that career also needs some sort of investment to grow exponentially. Feed your career with necessary skills and acquiring knowledge. So exactly, that's what we are talking about, Suhaib. Thank you very much for highlighting this point. And then we got another comment. I think Suhaib has a lot of time today. So he has typed another comment. Let me just grab this one. Yeah, so career needs some investment. Okay,
It's the same.
it's the same one.
There is just one thing I'd like to add to this, and I'm glad Suhaib sort of brought it up. And career definitely needs investment. What I've seen a lot of people do, unfortunately, is wait for the organization to make that investment. If it comes to some kind of certification or training, if the organization isn't paying for it, people are like, "Yeah, I'm not going to do it." If you can afford it, and if you have the means to do it, there's no harm in investing in yourself. It's the best investment you will make. So go ahead and take that chance. Take the chance on yourself and go ahead and invest in your own skill development as well.
And I think now we are living in a world where there is plenty of knowledge and
Yes.
information is available even for free.
Yes, I mean,
Oh,
during
yeah,
this COVID period, the
yeah,
number of top class universities that have made courses available for free online is amazing. And the other thing is, I think people underestimate the value of e-learning as well. It's great. There is so much available through the internet and social media. All of these things have made things so accessible, and sometimes we feel that it's of less value because we're not sitting in a classroom with a trainer in the front of the room, and
yeah.
that's not really what it is. You can get a lot of value from e-learning programs as well.
I mean, I remember when I was doing my master's back in 2004, at that time, computer and laptops, they were not so handy. I mean, if you want to use computer or laptop, you have to go into your college or university
Computer
lab.
lab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And internet speed was not that sufficient enough to,
Yep.
browse everything available on internet. So, I mean, if you want to learn something, you have to get in touch with the individual personally, or you have to go and search for a book where you could find relevant knowledge. But now everything is on your fingertips. Take
Yep.
your mobile, open the Google app, and type in. You will be exposed to thousands of resources.
That's true. It's made it so much easier, and I think we forget how much we have access to.
Yeah. And then we have Rubia Akhtar. She's watching us from Bangladesh, saying hello to you. Thank you
Hello.
very much, Rubia, for joining in all the way from Bangladesh. Then we got another comment. Sau Bhagwa. I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If I don't, please excuse my pronunciation. So, cross-functional collaboration leads to learning and career growth. This is exactly
Yes.
what we are talking about. That never underestimate the importance of your daily tasks, your routine work, cross-functional collaboration, working with other colleagues in different departments. So, I mean, it all comes together
Yeah.
towards a great bunch of learning that we can have from other colleagues.
Yes.
And what
I
I would
mean,
like to mention, Nariman, over here, I think you have already mentioned this point, that whatever we are doing on daily basis, we are learning from different scenarios,
yes.
from different
Yes.
assignments. And majority of the people that they always underestimate the power of this type of learning.
Yep. Like I said, 20% is what you get from other people. And I think one of the other things I do want to mention when it comes to career growth and especially like cross functional collaboration is the amount of visibility that you get out of doing these kind of projects, out of maybe presenting in front of the executive team or presenting in front of like different departments. We all know, and this is not like some hidden secret, that career growth, yes, your skills, your drive, all of those things are important. But if you are not visible in the organization, people will not know who you are. People will not know what skills you have and what you're bringing to the table. And taking advantage of things like cross-functional collaboration actually really, really help, because when, let's say, they're doing the talent review in that meeting room and you have your head of department is there, they know you, but nobody else does, it's going to be a much harder sell. But if other people from other departments are like, yeah, I've worked with XYZ and they did a great job, they're great at XY, ABC, your chances of growth, your chances of more exposure, more development increase exponentially. So please take advantage of cross-functional collaborations.
Maybe my next question to you is about, continuous learning. What do you say about, continuous learning in the form of certifications, postgraduate certifications, and formal trainings or trainings that would give you some kind of authority in your subject, that you can
Sure.
become a certified welder, you can become, certified HR professionals, you can become, certified supply chain professionals. So how do you gauge the importance of such kind of certifications in terms of individual and the personal
Sure.
career development?
So there's a couple of things. And it's funny because I've had a very recent interaction with some people on this topic in particular. So when it comes to education, I think there is definitely a value there. But for example, me personally, I don't have a master's degree, right? So I've done my bachelor's and then I've done a couple of certifications in HR. And I feel
Then
very
you must have
comfortable.
done your 4 years bachelor's, not 2 years bachelor's.
I did a 3-year bachelor's
Okay.
from University of London. But yeah, so the thing is, there's certain areas where I feel certifications you cannot manage without. And I think there's certain professions which require it. And I do feel in the field of HR, for example, we're heading there, where things like CIPD or an SHRM certification or, having certain levels completed will become a requirement for the job. And in certain parts of the world, it is. And to make an organization more professionalized, I think that helps. And I think that's where, let's say, a department like finance finds it easier to have a seat at the table because they have those professional qualifications. And unless you've done certain things, if you're like chartered accountant, you need to have completed things and then you get that seat at the table. So it becomes easier to have that being perceived as somebody who's part of the strategic unit. I do think you should definitely continuously develop yourself and invest in certifications and things like that when you've understood what your area of interest is, one, right? So I know that I want to do HR, so I've done things in there. So that's one way of doing it. The other reason I would promote it is if you want to understand about other parts of the business as well. So if I want to understand about marketing, or maybe I'm thinking of making a switch to marketing, this is a great way for me to sort of make that transition. So those are some of the things that I think are important. I definitely would not discourage anybody from taking on, a master's degree, or there's always value in education. You can't discount it. But what I don't like is, unfortunately, when I've seen organizations get bogged down on, master's degree, tick box. Yes, now we can move to the next stage of the process, or XYZ certification, tick box, unless it's a professional thing like in engineering and stuff. Yes, you need certain certifications to operate certain machinery, and that's fine. But I think we need to be careful about what value we attach to which thing, because I can give you examples of people who don't have bachelor's degrees who are great as business, and people who have, 2 MBAs who are equally great at business. So we need to find that right balance between the two.
Yeah, I think it depends on individuals' personal need. For example, if I have only bachelor degree and I'm performing really well in my career, so it means that, something is giving me that flavor, that theoretical flavor in terms of my job. Maybe I'm doing some kind of a research job and I'm being,
Yeah.
my desire of theoretical knowledge is fulfilled from my daily activities. But on the other hand, if you feel like yourself stuck and you
Do it.
need,
Yeah.
then just do it. Exactly.
Exactly. You should definitely do it. And I think, and that's the thing. I think a lot of the times we've seen people, especially when they do things like MBAs, where they've been working for a few years and then they feel like they want to make a switch. They'll do an MBA and then start, something completely different. And I think it's great to expand your knowledge base always. So definitely do that. And yeah, keep investing in yourself, like I said.
Yeah, I think I can quote my example over here. I did my master's back in 2006. Then instantly after my master's, I jumped into the field of HR. So, I mean, during my university life, I was working as a call center agent in Omics
Yes.
Technologies. Maybe you know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I've heard of it.
Yeah. So
Yep.
that was just for fun and to have some flavor of the corporate world. But the moment
Yes.
I completed my master's degree, I switched to HR and I started my HR career back in 2006 and 7. And from 2006 till 2014, 17, I did not feel the need to have an extra certification.
Yeah.
So it's like, after 10 years, suddenly I felt like that,
So
okay,
I
I
need
need
something
something
more.
more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then I instantly go for GPHR, Global Professional HR
Yeah.
from HRCI. I did that. And after that, I got an opportunity to work with them as a volunteer.
Awesome.
And I work with HRCI as a subject matter expert, and I assist them to develop the exam questions for the GPHR module.
You're a
And
good
I'm
person to
doing,
know.
yeah, I'm doing this activity from last 2-3 years, and whenever we are developing questions for them, so it has to come up by due diligence and research.
Yes.
So you
Yes.
have to, read a couple of books.
So
You
you're
have
doing all
to
your constant revision yourself of everything that
exactly,
you've
exactly.
already. Yeah.
So you are refreshing your knowledge almost every year whenever you are working with them as a volunteer. And
Yeah.
then they give you a chance to interact with a network of HR colleagues. So it's always good to have an affiliation with a certification institute or to have a broad network with other colleagues who are working the same field, same industry. So it gives you kind of extra bunch or kind of an extra pie for your personal
Yeah.
taste.
Definitely.
And then we have some more questions. For example, Afulabi skill development freely offered to the public recently by
Yeah.
some universities. Big ups to them. Yeah, thank you very much for watching us and giving us your input. Then we got a comment from one of our uh, career coach on
Oh,
LinkedIn, and she's
okay.
based in Dubai, Rukhaya Khan,
Hi,
and
Rukhaya.
she is a career coach by profession based in Dubai, and she is quite active on Facebook. You can
Awesome.
find her
I will
Facebook live
definitely
videos.
check her out.
Yeah,
Yes.
actually, we were planning for a LinkedIn live, but somehow it didn't. We couldn't find the time, so we'll definitely do it. I think
Sounds
near
good. Looking
future.
forward to it.
Yeah. So Rukaiya, thank you very much for watching us and uh, showing your gratitude. And then we have comments from Sana Khan. I think he's saying hello, hello, hello. So a lot of hellos. So I will not take all the hellos over here. Then we have comment from Gulfarm, and he's saying if someone knows his strengths and meanwhile knows with these expertise will not receive higher income compared to sales profile, then what should we do? Should go for field he does not like to work. And yeah, so I think the
Okay.
question is all about, for example, if I'm working in, let's say, sales, and I'm
Yep.
not being able to generate extra commission, I'm not being able to sell the products, so what should I do? So I am working in my favorite domain, but it's not giving me
The
let's say
return.
financial growth.
Yeah. I think this is a really interesting question. And I know it's something people have struggled with. And I've seen people make that switch and go into a field that doesn't really excite them because of the financial need, which is, I think it works temporarily, but in the long run, it's not going to work because you'll become disengaged, you'll become demotivated, you'll want to you'll burn out, or it's not going to make sense in the long run. If you have opportunities maybe to move organizations and look at it that way, I've seen a lot of people and this is where I just want to share my thoughts on in terms of, sticking with one organization or job hopping or job switching, as people say. I do think it's important to do the switches. I think once you stay within one organization for too long, it can, depending on where you are in your career, but especially at the start, I think it can be slower, growth can be slower, exposure to opportunities can be a little bit slower. So switching after 2 years, but switch after one, you have learned, and two, you have delivered. What you don't want is to leave an organization without having achieved or delivered something, because when people ask you in your interview, what did you do? Saying I did my day-to-day job is not enough. They want to know what you achieved, right? Like they want to know your
Exactly.
successes. So make a switch then. I think that definitely helps because you're more likely to get a bigger financial jump than you would with a yearly increment in the organization, for one. So look at opportunities outside your organization. If it means that you need to do something for a little while that you're not the biggest fan of, if there's a particular, reason to get income. But even in sales, if it is a sales profile that you have and you want to work in sales, I know sales jobs are very competitive, and the number of management positions in sales aren't that high. So for a huge team of distribution officers or sales officers, you would have one regional manager or area manager. So I know it's not that easy, but if you genuinely feel that's your strength and it's something that you're passionate about, work on some of the other things like that self-development, like that visibility, like building your network. And I'm sure the opportunities will come. They might take a little longer, but they will come. But if you need to make a switch for financial reasons, just don't make it a permanent one, because it will bog you down.
Now we got a huge comment from Sohaib. Sohaib,
Okay.
I have read it. What you are saying, I partially agree to your comment. Can you read it, Nariman?
Yes, I'm reading it, and like I said, I don't disagree with Suhaib.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not someone who has done a master's degree, and I've been working now for 60. I completed my undergrad in 2003. So since then, I haven't felt the need to do it. And I've had a lot of people ask me that question, that why haven't you done it? And I've seen people sort of, say, why haven't you done certifications? So as far as certifications becoming mandatory in the field of HR, 100%, I think in Pakistan, at least, there is a long way to go. I have seen, for example, in other parts of the world where it's put into job requirements, like at least this level or equivalent of this level of certification, which is fine. But my 100% belief, and this is where I agree with Suhaib, is that I feel I've gotten to where I've gotten because of my skills, both soft skills and, core skills for the job, as well as my expertise and how I've been able to sell myself. I don't think so for me, I feel like when you're starting your career, in terms of landing a job, education and certifications help. But once you have been working for 2 years, 3 years, people are less worried about your qualification and more worried about what you've achieved and what you've delivered. When I apply for a role now, people are not going to ask me, "Acha, aapne, what did you do in your master's degree? Or what did you do in this certification?" They're going to ask me, "What did you achieve in your last role?" Where that skills and expertise comes in. So for me, certifications and those things, like Noman, you said, it's for myself. I'm not doing it to get a job. I am not doing it to land a role. I'm doing it because it's something I want to do. And that's what I always tell people, that if you want to do a master's, do it because you want to do a master's, not because you think it'll get you a better pay package. If you want to do a certification, go ahead. But don't think that because now you have a certification, lots of job opportunities will open up. That's not the reason you should be doing it. So I agree with Suhaib.
It's quite individual, and it's quite, for example, when you hit the gym, you get your nutrition plan. So your nutrition plan will be slightly, or to a great extent,
It's
different from
customized
someone
to
else.
me. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is exactly what happens with our career growth.
Yeah.
If, let's say, that you would like to have a flavor of compensation and benefits, which you are lacking in your current job, if you are getting an assignment, salary survey, remuneration survey, defining the salary bands,
Yep.
knowing the service laws of your company, it means that you get a chance to develop such skills.
Exactly.
If you do not get, then there are multiple other options to acquire such skills.
Exactly.
So again, there is nothing right and wrong. It depends on the situation, depends on the scenario, depends on the
Your
individual,
need.
and exactly on your need. So you can't do things for fashion only. Sometimes you do, right? But sometimes
Yes.
you do certain stuff based on the original and genuine needs. So you
Yeah.
move ahead on the basis of facts, what you really
Yes.
need, what can really make you a kind of authority in your subject, and what is required in terms of future. For example, right now, we everybody's talking about digital transformation. Digital transformation
100%.
is bombarding every other department. Every department is hit
Yep.
by new digital tools. So now there is no excuse that someone should stop himself, herself from learning these digital tools. So if you don't
From
learn,
learning
you're out
that.
of the game. Yeah.
Exactly. You'll get left behind. You'll get left behind. And I think one of the other points that Suhaib made, which I think is important, because I think there's a question which is linked to that in terms of like certifications and career ladder or moving up. Same thing that I said earlier, and I think Suhaib mentions it as well, that you can have a gazillion certifications, you can have 10,000 master's degrees, a PhD, everything under the sun. But if you are not delivering, if you're not utilizing, if you're not getting results and delivering in the business, and also not displaying the right soft skills or leadership skills, you're not going to grow. Those certifications will mean absolutely nothing. So while it's a good to have, it's not going to be enough
Exactly.
to move you up the ladder. Yeah.
I mean, it depends. It depends on your personal choice. For example, one of my colleague, he's an auditor by profession, and he got, you can say, tens of certification in his portfolio, and he really needs it.
Yes.
And he really
For
needs
them, they
it.
need it. Yeah.
Yeah, and because sometimes they have to audit the IT department. So a person with a financial background won't be able to, authoritatively
Understand. Yeah.
understand or authoritatively audit the IT functions unless he got the necessary skills and
Yes. The
abilities to
knowledge
say
to do
that
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
And as an auditor, for sometimes if you are a chartered accountant, you want your firms to be get attested by a chartered accountant. The chartered accountant has to be a
Has to
chartered
have those.
accountant.
Exactly.
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 Otherwise,
It's
his stamp or name won't count.
it's not worth anything. So there's definite, and this is what I said like at the start, there's certain fields where you cannot go
Yeah.
without those certifications. And that again, like you said, is up to you to figure out where you want to be, where you want to sit, where you want to stand, whatever, and then decide what certifications you need. But even for your friend who is the auditor, if
Yeah.
his certifications were not backed up by his delivery, he would not be getting assigned
Yeah.
a gazillion projects. So for certain departments, 100% agreed, you have to have it. But again, those other skills, like your soft skills, your leadership skills, your ability to deliver, how you've managed teams, especially as auditors, you need to manage teams, all of those things, that becomes equally important. And you need to build on those and not rely solely on certifications to help you grow.
Yeah. And let me give you another example. For example, in my previous role, when I was the HR manager in Saudi Arabia, so we were working with Aramco. Aramco is one of the biggest, oil refinery in the world,
Yes.
the giant company in Saudi. Uh, it does not matter that your company got welders who are very proficient or very effective in their skills and working with you from last 20 years. Aramco won't work with you unless they certify your welders.
Yeah.
And your welder has to have that Aramco certification, or your technician really need to be approved by Aramco, and it has to be a certificate which he or she can show, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So for some professions, it is mandatory
Yes.
because it gives you kind of an authority on a subject, authority to perform a job.
It gives you the license to do the job, right? Like without
Exactly.
it, you can't. Yeah.
I mean, it's just like
100%.
that. Someone he's very proficient, very professional in extracting your teeth.
Yeah.
So you will definitely not try that person unless you will see
Unless
that
they're a
person
dead.
is
Yeah.
certified.
Like exactly. Just the same.
Yeah. So it is some kind of mind effect as well. It's got some kind of psyche as well.
Definitely. Definitely.
And sometimes you feel more confident when you have something in your hand. Hey, I have it.
I've done
I
this.
know my job.
I'm confident in being able to deliver. I think
Yeah.
you're right. It does give you yourself a lot of confidence in your own this thing. Because I'll be honest, there have been times where in the last few years, I've had people sort of, put up question marks of how did she land this role? She doesn't have a master's degree. And sometimes you get that little bit of self-doubt, like, do I deserve to be here without a master's degree? But then I've done other things. I've done like some certifications. I know what I've achieved while I've worked, and you need to take some time to remind yourself of that as well.
I mean, one of my friend, he works in academia. He's a professor in a university in Pakistan. So he did his PhD quite recently, and now yesterday I won't name him. He's a very close friend. So yesterday he was talking about his meeting with the Higher Education Commission of Pakistan. So they were talking about that how can they differentiate or how can they set the curriculum of MBA program, MS program,
Okay.
MPhil program, and all that. So then I was thinking that, what is the real difference between MBA, MS, and MPhil?
Good question.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of a food for thought, everyone. That what would happen if I do my MBA with a slight difference of subjects in
Difference.
my MPhil and slight difference
Yeah.
of subjects in my MS program. So what exactly it's gonna give? Anyways, I think it's kind of a very good question for the people and a food for thought for
Yeah,
the people who are working in academia. Right.
definitely.
So we'll not go in more detail because it's kind of a controversial topic a little bit. And then we got another comment from our friend
Okay.
Afolawe, and he's saying, in my region, there are lots of discrimination between the HND and bachelor's degree holders in the same field of career, but the HNDs pay more loyalty and input to the success of the project execution, but still they are subjected to humiliation by recruiting agents. What can be done by global HR to help balance this discrimination? I think it's a very, very valid and genuine question that he has asked. HND means diploma,
Diploma?
and
Yeah.
so diploma and bachelor's. So basically,
Yeah.
he's talking about. Let me
Like a
just
high
translate
school
this question.
education? Like a
Let
high
me
school
translate.
education?
No,
Okay,
I think
sure.
he's talking about, for example, if someone has done a B Tech or
Okay,
a
sure.
bachelor's in engineering. So let's translate this question into more universal language. For example, in Pakistan, people can do B Tech even if
Yeah.
they have not so good grades in their high school. But
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you are
yeah.
coming on merit, you can go to UET or Ghulam Isa Khan, and then you can go your for bachelor's of engineering. So there's
Sure.
always kind of a different tracks for two streams. So the diploma
100%.
holders, they always lacked a little bit behind as compared to the formal engineers. So that's what he is
Yeah.
talking about.
Okay, so there's a couple of things here to unpack, and I will speak personally from my current organization's perspective as well. And this is something which is harder to do globally, and I've seen it happen maybe in pockets in local operations and things like that. So for us at the British Council, for example, we're pushing more and more to not make degrees and these kind of things like a deciding factor when it comes to salary or yes or no for recruitment. And this again speaks to the EDI policy that we have and how we really want to strive for inclusion and diversity. I think the first step is, you're right, it has to be a global HR shift. Right now, I can tell you, you will not find everybody in HR being on board with saying that you can treat them equally. There'll be a lot of people in the field, and it's not just HR, but just your line managers, the sides of the business, who will not be convinced that somebody with an HND is equally good or qualified as somebody with a bachelor's degree. You'll find it to be a hard sell. But I think we need to start in pockets and find examples and sort of highlight those as a global HR function if we feel it, if we genuinely agree with it. I do. I'm someone who does follow that sort of principle, but I know that it's not an easy sell, and I know it's not something that everybody believes as well. So I think for us, it's about finding examples of success stories, highlighting those, and if you can do that within your own organization to start with, take examples of people who had an HND versus somebody who had a bachelor's, talk about the successes that they've had, highlight their stories, highlight their achievements, get people to engage with that conversation. And that would be step one, when you're able to show, again, the results, because at the end of the day, that's what the business cares about. They want the results. And if you're telling me that I can get great results from somebody with an HND versus somebody with a bachelor's, that will help. But I think it's a conversation we do need to have at a global scale. I don't think we're having it enough. I've seen it happen in pockets, and we've seen it in different parts of the world, in certain very developed countries where bachelor's is not a minimum requirement. Also because not everybody actually does bachelor's degrees, right? Like a lot of people just don't do college education because of how expensive it is or because of how difficult it is to access. So I think it's about opening up conversations or having questions like the ones that you've asked, put to senior leaders in the global HR world, and sort of have them at least discuss that opportunity.
All right. Thank you very much, Nariman, for answering all the questions. I mean, it's not a kind of a structured interview,
Yeah.
and I'm quite happy that you are flexible enough to go with the flow. And let me just twist our discussion a little bit and see the other side of the coin, because all this time we have been talking about how an individual can progress in his or her career. What can we do? What are certifications, learning opportunities, about our day-to-day affairs, what we can learn out of them. So now let's see the other side of the coin, which is basically the managers. I'm sure a lot of managers, they're watching us, and they
Sure.
will be interesting and keen to know that what can they do to develop their team members, how they can fulfill the demands or
Sure.
fulfill the aspirations of the team members who would really like to move up in the career ladder, would like to individually, personally, and professionally develop themselves. So, what would
Sure.
be your suggestions to the manager who are watching us out there?
Cool. First and foremost, I think just regular conversations. What I've seen, unfortunately, and we've seen obviously the change in performance management where people are having more rolling deliverables, check-ins on 12 times a year, monthly check-ins rather than the traditional form of once a quarter or mid-year and an end-year review. If you're still doing just a mid-year and end-year, you need to change that. And it doesn't mean that you have to formally enter everything into the system, but just make sure you're having regular conversations with your team. One, to understand where they are personally and professionally, to understand what it is that they want to do, because what you don't want is for you to see them in one direction and them wanting to go in a different direction. But you need to be open and honest as well. If you feel that the aspiration they have isn't realistic, tell them why and tell them what they need to do to get there. So, you can sit with your team members and develop individual development plans where you look at a 3-year goal, a 1-year goal, and a 5-year goal and talk about, okay, these are the skill gaps as a manager that I see, and these are the things that you can do. So those things could be work on XYZ project, partner with so-and-so, get mentored by XYZ. So those are the kind of things that you can input. And this, again, is stuff that as a manager, you have control over. It's not that you're waiting for HR to give me budget to send you to a training. As a manager, you have access to so many developmental tools and things that you can use to help your team member develop. But the first and foremost thing is to have an open and honest conversation about someone's career goals and their gaps. Something that I see people often struggle to do is to articulate the gaps that people have, or they're reluctant because they're like, oh, I don't want them to get offended if I highlight this, or I don't want them to feel like I'm putting them down. If you do not give them that honest feedback, you are going to set them up to fail because they will not be able to see the gaps that they have as individuals and the areas that they need to focus on. The other thing that managers can do and should do is, of course, help improve your team members' visibility, talk them up. When you have opportunities to take them to meetings or give them that exposure, find opportunities to do that. If they can sit in for you at a senior level meeting or one of the meetings that you're attending, lead a project that, help you lead a project, whatever, give them opportunities to do that. So delegate where you can, and don't just delegate like the not fun work. Give them something meaningful to do, where they actually learn and develop. And the other
And
thing,
I think what you mentioned, that is really, really important. Conversation, conversation, conversation. Communicate, and go for over communication. And I think what you just mentioned right now, that honesty is the best policy, genuineness. I mean, when you conversate with someone, you can look in the eyes of the individual that how genuine is the conversation, how genuine is the aspiration is. And let me just quote the example quickly. When you go to a physician and you talk about your pain, and the physician just instantly give you a medicine, you're always in a doubt that
did
should
they
I take this? Should I take this medicine? Would it really work? But on the other hand, if the physician give you, good 30 minutes, hear your problem, understand your pain, then suggest you medicine, then you're really confident that, this is the right medicine that I'm going to take. So this is exactly what happens when you have a conversation with your team members. If you are not giving them 100% of your ears to their needs and, giving them a chance to speak up, and show them the genuineness and the reliability factor in you, then probably the discussion would not be that positive.
Yeah, that trust, I think, is an essential element, and you need to build it. And it's not going to happen that I bring you into a room to have a conversation with you and all of a sudden I will trust you. You have to do it through actions. You have to make me believe. And the other thing I think line managers need to be really, really conscious of, and it's funny that I use the word conscious, but is that unconscious bias element, right? We have favorites, and we know we have favorites. And if everybody
has favorites.
Tells me they don't have a favorite, they're lying.
When I was in London School of Economics and I was doing my leadership course, the first thing that I learned in my course, that we like those who are like us.
Like us, yes, we have an affinity bias. So if I see someone who works like I do, I am more likely to give them the good projects. I'm more likely to build a stronger relationship with them. But that doesn't mean that the other people in the team don't have something equally good to offer. So as a manager, you need to be really aware of those biases and then work towards making sure that you mitigate the impact that they have and you are treating your team members equally. And one of the ways you do that is actually just focus on the skills, focus on the delivery, and less on the I like you, so let me give you this project. So I've seen that happen, and you need to be really careful as a manager that you don't fall into that trap.
Yeah, I think wonderful explanation. That's exactly that I would like to tell everyone, my friends who are managing people, that just be there and listen.
Yes.
Once you listen carefully, then you will get all of the solutions instantly.
That's
So,
true.
I mean, genuine conversation. There is no tool, no platform, and no model which could replace the genuine conversation between the
Yes.
managers and the team members.
Yeah, and I feel
Um,
like using coaching skills are also it's good because, like you said, that if someone's just prescribing things and giving it to you, I'm less likely to take ownership of that as well. But if you can convince me and if you help me get to that realization myself by asking me the right questions, again, I'm going to take you more seriously. I will trust you more, and I will actually take ownership of the solution that you're providing as well.
yeah. So I think we have the last 14 or 15 minutes to go before we wrap up our session. So now let's move towards the third player in terms of career development, organization.
Yes.
Or when we talk about organization, people talk about HR as well. So let's
Yep.
discuss them together, because as an HR, you are the representative of the organization. You are the face of the company. You are the first point of contact of the individuals when they would like to talk to the management or the
Yeah,
organization.
you're that bridge. You're that bridge.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, what kind of tools, platforms, or policies, or infrastructure, or kind of paradigm or ecosystem that we should have as an organization to make people effective in their individual, personal, and professional lives?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the more important things is just making sure how all the various HR pieces of the puzzle come together, because all the different functions are going to help you get that complete picture. But unfortunately, a lot of the times you see organizations where the talent acquisition team is working in their just going to bring people on board,
Yeah.
and development is working on, okay, now that people are here, this is what we're going to do. So there's not that connect throughout the employee life cycle process. So I think that's one thing, just making sure we work together collectively as one HR function versus different HR teams within the function. Data, HR tends to be notorious for not using data well. um, but data and
And
how we use it,
often blamed by finance.
yes. Why?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think HR really needs to, and we've seen it more and more where, data analytics and these things are becoming more central to how HR functions, but using data, not just for HR, but for the function, for the organization, right? Because when you take anything to management, if it's not backed up by numbers, if it's not backed up by data, if it's not backed up by evidence, they don't have time. They're not going to listen. So HR needs to know how to build those business cases as well. Then it comes to, like, let's say different parts of the ecosystem. How you manage performance and what you reward and what you hold people accountable for has to align to what you are claiming is the talent that you're looking for in an organization. So if I'm saying that, I want a line manager or I want senior leaders who are X, Y, Z, but through my performance management system, I'm rewarding behavior, which is ABC, there is a disconnect. So I need to make sure that all of those pieces are working well together. Then you have that discussion of open recruitment versus, talent planning or succession management.
Yeah.
Which way works best? It's a debate. I've seen people want to do both. I prefer the succession planning and talent management process because you're looking at an overall performance. It's not just that 1 year. It's not just that one interview or two interviews that someone's doing well in, but you're looking at how they've progressed in their career. You're taking input from various individuals that they've worked with, various stakeholders. So I feel succession planning is a very important part of the HR toolkit, which we need to use really
I
well.
think your kids are getting a little bit anxious?
Yeah, my daughter's getting excited. No, she's just
Yeah,
having a little bit of a tickle fight with
yeah,
her dad, so it's okay.
I can completely understand. I have gone through from this phase every day, right?
Yes.
I think that's really an interesting point. And thank you very much for highlighting this point that all the pieces of the puzzles they should be bindly and connected with each other if we really want to get the fruit out of our company policies, our tools and infrastructure, and move towards a common goal. And what you highlighted about succession planning and external hiring or internal hiring, I think it's combination of everything.
Yeah.
It depends on it depends on many cultural factors, international factors, or international demographical factors. For example, if you are in Middle East, then probably you need to have a kind of
Yes.
different set
Different
of.
set. Yes, of course.
And if you are in Asia Pacific, then certain things
It
won't
will be
work for
different.
you. Yeah, it will be a little bit different. So it has to be a combination of everything.
Yeah. I think the thing is, like, when you look at succession planning, it's important for the organization, as an organization, for me to see, okay, if I'm having difficulty in filling certain gaps in my talent pipeline, then that data or that stuff becomes important. Like, why am I having those issues? Why do I have to go external at a particular level or for a particular skill set? Am I not developing individuals? And this is then goes back to that, who owns that development process. So there is a role that the organization has to play, right? So am I providing opportunities as an organization for somebody to develop digital skill set, for example? Are we doing anything in that area? No, which is why I have to go externally. But then for the future, I need to make sure I can solidify that pipeline a little bit better. So I do think it's a combination, 100%. But we need to, as organizations, review these plans and understand where the gaps are, and more importantly, why they exist.
Yeah. And I think for organizations now, what is important in terms of talent development, talent acquisition, and talent retention, that all these things, they are connected with each other.
Yeah.
And companies should focus on talent relationship management. So you cannot say that I will focus on this one and I will ignore the other one. You have to have employer attractiveness program. You have to have employer branding strategy. You have to have kind of, your talent retention and pipeline and everything built together in a way that, you could actually, plug and play the system in a way.
100%.
Anyways, Nariman, thank you very much for this wonderful and interactive discussion. And I hope that it has enlightened a lot of people who have watched us live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And I
thank
really
you so
don't
much.
want to end up. And I think we can talk about this topic for a whole day.
Definitely. There's so much to be said. But
and in
thank
the
you
end,
so
my
much for
wife
having
also
me.
commented that informative conversation. So I got this comment from my wife, so it means that she's watching us as well.
That's a big approval.
Exactly. So thank you very much. And thanks to Nariman for spending time on weekend. And thanks to everybody who watched us live from all over the world. So thank you very
so much for having me.
You're welcome. And before we wrap up, every conversation has to end one day. So that's how this conversation is.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining in.